Kia ora, and welcome to the Run Adjacent podcast. We are sponsored by Trek, Trail, and Fish. I'm Mal, and we've got our usual co-host Hayden Siddon back today. This means you lucky ducks get two chirpy chicks. Our co-host today is Hannah Thompson. Hannah, how you doing?
I'm doing great, thanks, Mel.
Yeah?
Yep, really well.
No Te Ora Ultra 50K for you, eh?
Not this year. I've been chilling over summer.
Okay.
Doing everything but running. No, I have been doing I have been running, but I've been focusing more on spending time with my whānau and having a lovely holiday.
Yeah, you've been camping a lot.
Yes, I have been. It's been great.
Hit up Hannah if you want any good camping spots. As always, a big thank you to our sponsor, Trek, Trail, and Fish. You can visit their website at trektrailfish.co.nz. Either come into the shop or, again, you can shop online, and they've got a really good selection of shoes: Hoka, Salomon, Saucony, La Sportiva, Topos, Normal, Ultras. I don't know if I'm saying any of those right with my accent, so if y'all want to fix it, you can. My favorite has been the Normal shoes, and I love Hoka's. The exciting thing about this sponsor is they just announced the Trek, Trail, and Fish 50K as part of the Hot Prince Bay of Islands Run Walk Festival. So I'm pretty stoked that they're going to be sponsoring that.
And that there's now a 50K up this way.
Yeah, Northland.
Amazing. And in Paihia, which I feel like is going to be an absolutely epic location.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Anyway, moving on to our guest today, and thanks to Steph, this guest's wife, for hooking us up with this intro. This is from her. So our guest today is the one-legged English guy, often seen smoking peeps at parkrun whilst pushing a buggy. He loves talking running and loves to run. Due to a rare childhood cancer, he became a lower right leg amputee at 11 years old. He has been getting after it with running since 2017. You can check out his Strava, which I have personally been checking out over the last couple of weeks since we found out that we were going to be interviewing him. So you can check out his Strava yourself to see how bloody consistent he is with his weekly mileage. So welcome to the podcast, James Gebbett.
Yep, thank you very much, Hannah. Cheers.
No worries. And how's your morning been so far? You been out running yet?
Yeah, I managed to squeeze one in. I had plans on heading down to parkrun this morning, but then my youngest son, Seb, who's just about to turn 2, decided to wake up about 10 to 5 or so and managed to settle him back to sleep after much coercement but then I light dozing for the start. So instead of the parkrun, it was getting him and his brother out, him in the buggy and his brother on a bike. Then we've invented our own I've made it like a fartlek session along the shared path. So
yeah,
I'll race Leo on his bike for a short, between a certain number of lampposts, and he usually beats me.
Wow,
it's a good way
that's
of trying to get them.
That's a good way to keep it interesting with a kid. Yeah, I have to try that.
Yeah, and really nice for fitting in just some different speed work.
Yeah, and trying to push the buggy as well.
Yeah,
definitely.
Huh. Can you tell us some background of your history with cancer and how you became an amputee?
Yeah. So I must be when I was about 7 or 8 or so. So in the very late 1980s, my parents noticed there was a bit of, I was protecting the inside of my foot on my right leg. So they weren't quite sure what was wrong with it. And I got checked out and they couldn't really see anything, did x-rays and nothing showed up. So, it was, it kind of went on the back burner for a few years, but in the meantime, it was getting a bit more sore. And eventually, when I got to the age of probably 10 and a half, I was referred to another hospital for a few checkups, and they realized there was like a lump on the inside of my foot. And at that point, it was thought that it might have been it was diagnosed as being a neuroma, so like a growth from the nerve that came out from there. And so from there, then it was operated on and removed successfully, and the foot kept intact. But it was only then afterwards, probably about a month after, when that was what they'd removed was sent for testing, that it was realised it was a cancerous growth in the foot, like a sarcoma just on the inside of the foot. And then because of where that location it was either a choice of keeping the foot and removing part of the heel, much of the muscle structure and tendons and bone within it, so it would be a not functioning foot with a fairly high chance of reoccurrence, or then amputation.
So when they discovered the neuroma and they removed it, did you say that did they do a biopsy to see if it was
Yeah,
cancerous?
after they removed it, they did a biopsy, of what they diagnosed as a neuroma, but it was a sarcoma.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So who makes that like decision when you're only 10 or 11 years old? Is it yourself or is it your parents? Or how does that
That was
work?
my parents, and they were, they'd, of course, I got the information from the first of all, the hospital said that it was all clear and it should be a good recovery. And then I was informed that I had a few checkups and they would have another operation. My parents didn't say anything in the days leading up to it. It was only then in the hospital the night before. So that the surgeon informed me, which I think at that age is the best thing. I mean, any kind of lead time into that, knowing you're going to have that major surgery and that change in prognosis would have been hard.
Yeah, so your parents made the decision that it wasn't going to be the heel operation.
Yeah, and it wasn't really a viable option at that point. Yeah,
okay.
after the work had been done, it was that was the only option available at that point.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did your parents kind of respond to all that too? Like, do you remember? I mean, you're 11 years old.
Yeah.
Because I
So-
can only imagine now, you as a parent, how you would feel with your children and going through some of that.
I think I can appreciate now even more really how horrific it must have been. It's bad enough when you see one of your kids just a little bit ill and they'll home for a few days for that and feeling a bit poorly. But yeah, going through that and the difficulties in getting the right kind of diagnosis for it and then having the amputation would have been hell for them. Then afterwards, there was, because of how it was treated and mistreated, there was quite a high chance of recurrence. So I was having to have PET scans initially every month, and then after a few months, every 3 months, just to make sure it hadn't reoccurred in my leg or anywhere else in my body. So yeah, that was a pretty awful experience to try and go through, kind of having to have the scan and having to wait until we got the check for that. So.
It's almost like, I would imagine as a kid, that's a lot of anxiety, I would think. And then did you end up having it all in Starship down in Auckland, or where was all of
So this is all in the UK. So this was
UK.
in London. So it's on the NHS over there. Then it took a while to kind of get used to, in some ways kind of psychologically, like getting used to, it's fine, other kids, no problem with, and I was a kid myself because kids ask questions, but just getting used to the fact that if I was out and about, people would look and people would stare, and that took a little bit to get used to. But I was pretty determined to get going and get moving as quick as I could, and get kind of walking on crutches within a few months, and then kind of pushing on from there. And ever since then, really, it's been about kind of thinking about what I can do to challenge it and what I could kind of keep pushing on doing, really.
Yeah.
In many ways, I see it as an advantage, in that it's not something that's held me back. It's just something that I've kept challenging.
Yeah.
Wow.
Sorry, I have so many questions about that too. So when because at 11 years old also, did you have your friends see you go through that, and what was the response that your friends had?
Really supportive, yeah. It's just kind of in that transition just before going to high school. So yeah, and I knew quite a few people there, and I think they kind of saw how I just kind of got on with things and wanted to carry on playing football. I remember like in a school playground, about 2 weeks afterwards, I didn't want to be stuck in a wheelchair, so I was on crutches and was determined to be playing football at morning tea and lunchtime. So they kept claiming it was handball when I was using my crutch to try and score. Not at all. So they're really, really accepting for it.
Yeah. It sounds like you were quite an active child. And so you obviously had lots of motivation to be able to like get back to being as active as possible.
Yep.
As quickly as possible.
Yep.
Yeah.
So then, at that point it was kind of a transition in the limb technology as well. So I remember the first few ones had just like a wooden foot and a steel rod really to hold it up. And at that point early on, it was quite a lot of the health system in the UK was catered for older generations. There'd be a lot of people that had lost legs through diabetes and other health issues. But we did kind of notice that shift and better technology and getting better legs as well. Not without kind of pitfalls along the way, but certainly I was to get more active and do more things as kind of teenage years went on.
Sorry, this isn't on the
that's fine.
run sheet. We've given James a run sheet, and Mel and I have already
We never
thrown that out the
follow it.
window. But I just want to kind of talk about your journey from 2011 to actually being able to run.
Yep.
What did that look like? So what did the rehabilitation program look like? And and
so
how long did it take?
So through teenage years, I was playing football a lot. I was in playing my school football team. Managed to break a kid's toe when it was his fault. He fouled me. I managed to tackle him, and he tried to shoot and kick the carbon fiber part of my leg instead of the ball, and came off worse.
We love a good stub toe.
But then it was only kind of doing shorter bursts of it rather than anything longer. It was probably when I was always quite active doing lots of walking and things and a bit of gym as well. But it's probably when I moved over to New Zealand in about end of 2011, I started to be more active on it, and then transition into using the healthcare service over here as well with it. And I've received some really awesome bits of equipment and great services from the Limb Centre in Auckland from that as well. And it's from there I started to do more kind of going to the gym a bit more and doing a little bit more cardio things there. Still not doing that much running, being hesitant on doing that much. So I was using the cross trainer and things like that. And it all kind of changed around 2017. So around then, I think we went back to England to see my parents and family over Christmas, and I'd got relatively healthy and wanted to keep doing that. And I thought the best way would I just try doing running a little bit there, and really enjoyed doing that. And then when I got back, I was kind of trying to do it a bit more and slowly going from there.
Yeah. So what was your why around why you started running? Like, what was it? Just
the why at that point was just to keep fitness over going back and spending time in pubs and catching up with friends in the UK. Not come back pasty and podgy, which is still happening anyway. Then I just found it great. Like, I just so meditative being out there, and it's still all the pitfalls of a runner when you're starting off. So getting like shin splints and overtraining and all those mistakes and getting those those kind of injuries and then a few little minor issues with my leg as well from it. But it's still just kind of slowly building, getting a bit more experience with it with my leg. Then probably the challenge was then it was still just in my normal walking activity leg, which is just like a general activity leg. So I was kind of pummeling my stump quite a bit wearing that one. So then it was trying to get access to kind of a better leg that'd be more suited for running, which was then the next challenge to try and overcome.
Yeah, right. Can you talk about that challenge specifically?
Yeah. So with my amputation, I was on New Zealand healthcare, which has been an excellent service, but naturally it isn't and can't be a bottomless pit of money for me to say, I've just been running on holiday, I want a running leg, can you get me a running leg?
Right.
So it was after I started to appeal for it and started to speak to the Limb Centre maybe about a year and a half after that, after I've been running on this one. And I think in the meantime, I'd got up to doing some decent distances. So I'd done the Auckland half marathon I did on just my normal walking leg.
Wow.
But it was certainly a limiting factor, and then I could pick up injuries quite quickly, and it's quite hard to do.
How many walking legs did you have then? Or did you just have one that you'd be able to use?
Just one main leg, yeah. So again, if I had a problem with it, if I had a breakage, and there's been many breakages, then I'd be stuck literally without a leg to stand on. So so I had to. After that, then I had a few more months, another 6 months into a year. And what I've kind of learned all the way through being an amputee is you've just got to keep pushing for more. And the more you can challenge them, and the more that they can see that you want to continue that upwards trajectory, then the more you can get from it. I went to kind of a few appeals, and eventually I was able to convince them that it would be good for them to get a running leg alongside my walking leg. And that was just hugely transformative when I got that probably about 4 years ago now, I think.
Wow.
So that's it's almost like it's similar to a track blade. It's like a hybrid version of that, but it's rather than a much smaller curved carbon fiber, it comes right the way out and curves around.
Can you tell me a little bit about how when you switched from the walking blade to a running blade, how probably fast, like in terms of your pace and probably even like efficiency and I don't know how your stump felt with that too. Yeah. Can you talk a little more about that?
It took a while to get used to. There's changes to the gait that occur with it, and the nature of the leg only works under compression. So if you're standing on it, it's 2 or 3 centimeters too tall because it's not meant for that. It's meant for when you're running. So just getting used to that, and it swings around a little bit if you're on uneven ground. Took a while. But yeah, I did notice it would, pretty quickly would make a difference at times. It isn't a silver bullet. It didn't just, stick a rocket up my backside and get me going. As much as I hoped it would. Clearly, the rest of my body still has to work harder and run fast. Yeah.
I wonder if it would it be the equivalent of like wearing carbon shoes? Would you think
it might be a bit like that?
Would be? Yeah. Or just be.
Yeah. Could you describe to people that are listening to maybe describe the difference between a running and a walking? But because the running blade I'm picturing is more of that like
so the walking leg would be what I'd be wearing kind of under trousers at work and so on. All the mechanics of it are closely focused around the ankle, and then the actual foot, which is carbon fiber, has a foot cover on it to go into shoes. The running blade, however, from the bit that attaches on as they're below the amputee, it's about halfway down my shin. Then you've got a big sweeping curve which goes way back beyond that point of balance, which goes down to the end of the blade, which has treads on it. So no shoes with that one. Just a running tread which can be replaced on there too.
And you can run on trails with that?
Running on trails, it's got quite big grips on it. It's can be quite hard on quite rocky material because if I haven't got an ankle that's going to adapt to any surface. So if I stand on something, the rest of my body goes that way. So it's less efficient than it would be for other runners on there, but still fun. Thing I've got to look out for, if I twist the wrong way, I can end up catching my left ankle on the edge of the carbon fiber blade, which hurts quite a bit.
Did you find transitioning to the running blade that you were falling over more, or because I would almost imagine like having that is a totally different surface. Probably the hardest thing was when I was up and running, it was okay, and it was there's a few things I didn't really appreciate before, that actually the acceleration and deceleration is still the same. I'm not any faster really over 5-10 meters. It's more just the efficiency when I get up to running. Probably the thing that was the hardest is when it's fairly comfortable, and if I had it, I had to just remember that I still had it on, because if I was walking on it, it's walking on a leg that's just the toes. There's no midfoot, there's no heel. So say if I try and walk backwards or take a step backwards, I just fall backwards because there's nothing there. So just have to remember when I've got it on, particularly if I'm carrying one of the kids at the time, that I've only got the toes there. There's no heel, there's no foot.
Have you got any stories of like when you first got it, like of like instances where you have fallen over that were?
Just I've fallen over with that one. A few times, done a few. I used to go to Cornwall Park quite a bit early in the morning in Auckland, and I remember one time I went for a run in the morning and my head torch ran out of batteries, so I was running back as you do, and I managed to catch the end of it on a tree root, and went through those stages of almost saving myself, thinking I was going to save myself, and then face planting into tree and dirt. So I was teaching. I was at a boys' boarding house then as well, as a boarding master. So coming back, just like bloodied and bruised and covered in dirt was quite a sight.
Okay, we'll go back to the run sheet.
I know. Well, one of the first questions is, what were the half marathons you raced in? Can you tell me within that which ones you were using, maybe even the walking versus the running blade?
From half marathons I've done Auckland, that was with That was with my walking leg. So
And what was your time? Do you remember?
Can't remember the time, but I think it was about just over 5 minutes a K for that one.
Wow.
About 5:02.
With your walking leg?
Yeah, with my walking
okay,
leg,
yeah.
yeah.
And then
Yeah.
do you remember the one with your...
Yeah, with the blade, Whangarei would be, and that was when I was in good shape for that one. I think it was about 4:39 or so per K for that.
Wow,
So
that's decent.
Oh,
yeah,
that is
that's
really
pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not quite at that level at the moment, but
I'm
still
sorry.
aims to get back.
Can you guys do time? An hour.
Yeah,
38?
about
Was it
that,
an
just
hour?
under an hour 40.
That
I think.
is
Yeah.
so good.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
cool.
that's pretty good. Yeah.
Was that your favorite race? Was the Whangarei half?
Yeah, that is. Yeah, I think I've done that twice. And yeah, definitely like to get back and do a few more of that as well, because it's quite a nice fast course for most of it as well.
Yeah, I feel like that
yeah.
too. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's good. I did Kerry 2 years ago as well.
Oh yeah,
which is great.
it's a good one.
It's mostly downhill. It's marvelous. Yeah.
And we've heard that we know that you've done a marathon, but we've heard that you're banned from doing another one. Can you elaborate on that, please, James?
Yes, I can. Yeah. Yeah. So I did the Auckland Marathon. Must have been like three or so years ago. And with it, and both of that one and my first half marathon, as well as training for an event and trying to get to the stage of being able to put my body through a marathon. It's such a great opportunity as well to raise funds around it. So for both of them, I've done raising money for the Cancer Society for it. So I put a lot of energy into that and got loads of money for it. And equally the training, making sure that I was doing the long runs and all that preparation. Got to the day and I was hoping for. I was aiming for around 4 hours, even though it was my first marathon as well. I thought I could get potentially around there. So that was my first target was to finish, but second one to do that. Also in doing it, I have part of the issues with my leg because the silicone sleeve that goes over my stump. It sweats, and then naturally every so often I need to take it off and dry it off as well. So it's kind of working out how long I can keep going before I get to that stage. With that one, I made a good start and was running really well through it. I usually have to take my leg off every 8 to 10 Ks, but I got halfway through the half marathon mark and did a quick pit stop then and carried on. And it went really well on the day. Ended up getting in at 3:44, so well under my task, my target time for that. So I was delighted with that and got my timings kind of spot on for it as well, even though it was above what I was going to aim for. So I was managing to hang on. So really elated with that. It just then so happened I started to feel a bit off later on that evening and then ended up in hospital for about a day or so. And what I thought might have been an infection in my stump brought on by all the impact of running the marathon. What it turned out to be was more that because of the way my leg was fitting and wasn't fitting that well as most of the run, it was kind of the sleeve was slightly off a bit, but I just was pushing for the time, ignored it.
Yeah.
I basically put my stump through what would be like a kind of meat pulverizer process.
Oh, totally.
Of like that constant impact. So,
yeah.
So I ended up with really quite deep tissue damage to it.
Yeah.
Initially, when I was running, I thought if I get an issue like that, sometimes I've had infections in my stump. I've had maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks maximum off. So I thought I'll just leave it all out there, push my body as far as it can, and it'll be all right. I could just have a bit of time off. But with that deep tissue damage, my stump swelled up to about 3 times its size and stayed that way for a month, 2 months, 3 months. Wow. So I was just on crutches throughout that time.
Oh my God.
I was going to say that's the problem with when those kinds of things happen is then when you typically can rely on that leg, now you can't even fit the stump anymore.
Yeah.
And so, or your leg anymore. And so then you're crutching around or using a freaking wheelchair. And it's
it's just crutches. Yeah.
Quadruple the amount of work to do everything.
Yeah.
So it wasn't painful at the time when you were running?
No, it was okay at the time.
Yeah, wow.
And immediately afterwards. But then it was just maybe just kind of coming off the adrenaline into the evening. then it just started throbbing and getting worse and worse. And then
Do you think, did you hit a wall in the marathon? And I wonder if were you more, did you hit a wall or not?
I a semi wall, but not too bad. You know, I hear so much about it. I've done good distance in training up to about like 34 Ks or so, 35. So I was up around there. I was conscious of it feeling more difficult, and I stayed with the pacer for a little bit and then let him drift away. But luckily just got under that 3:45 one. So that, and then after that, the problem was then after that happened, the swelling went down, but I still had some residual scar tissue, and my stump had in effect changed shape. So it meant that my running leg and all my legs were kind of useless. I couldn't really wear them anymore. So then the next year or so of going back to limb centre, getting my legs changed, and then had to get a new walking leg, had to get a new running leg to recover more.
Do you think, looking back then, like, would it have made a difference if you changed it more frequently? Because during your training runs, when you'd go all the way up to 34K, were you trying to change that? Are you wringing out the silicone, or what are you doing when you're...
Yeah, the sleeve, it just starts to slide off a bit, so I just have to dry out the silicone in my stump and then put the leg back on.
Okay.
Definitely that was probably the main contributing factor, was not stopping enough, but it was an unknown at that point. I wouldn't have got under 3:45 for doing that. So clearly with hindsight, I would have done that differently, but at the time it was the best choice. Yeah.
That's a really long time to have to, I mean, you get off this high of running a marathon, like your first ever marathon, and running that time is really solid. And then finding out the infection and not being able to run for such an extended period that must have been really hard. Like mentally, how did you manage?
Not be able to walk or do anything as well. Exactly. So do all of that.
Get dressed and take a shower.
What I did, I still wanted to do something. So I decided to take up swimming for a while. Cool. So that was really good, having, learned to swim but not done nothing else but splash around. So I'd kind of use that running approach to swimming, kind of like do a bit of reading around it, look at just YouTube videos about technique and try and do different things. So that was quite enjoyable, and like doing that. And of course that was great. I could do some cardio work and things without any issues in my legs. So
with the swimming, did you have to use a prosthetic for that, or
no? With that, I just don't on my leg.
Do you just put a pull buoy between your legs?
No, I could just swim usually. So just using it normally, and contrary to popular belief, I don't just go round and round in circles.
Oh, that's funny.
I could see why you got banned then to do another.
Yeah, so that was what the ban. Although, I still think never say never, and I did enjoy doing it. I learned from the experience. I would like to eventually, once we get a bit more time to do get those longer runs in.
And just do a bit more testing around, like you said, like you just wouldn't make the same mistakes again. But I guess if you don't do it, you don't know,
and I think I would imagine the equipment is really just such a big component of it, with the silicone sleeve, and then just knowing how to manage that. Because one of our next questions that I had is like, how often do you have to change that? And I guess you answered my question earlier of like, you're having to change the silicone sleeve quite often. Is there any other things that you're having to think about during a long run? Yeah,
so I mean, I'm having to get replacement sleeves for it. Steph and the kids have had the misfortune of recently I've just had one sleeve for my stump. So I wash it every day and keep it really clean, but that's on the inside. The sweat kind of builds up on the outside. So quite rapidly I get kind of wet dog smell following me around. But now I've just got a few more just the other day. But the legs, my walking legs last a while longer. I do sometimes get breaks in them. Running leg, usually it's got quite a long warranty for it, and the limb centre said you won't break the running leg, and I've broken every one I've had actually. So every one, they eventually get a crack through the carbon fibre at the back. And my current one has as well, which hasn't completely given way, but it would head that way eventually. So.
Whoever told you that didn't realise how hardcore you were,
yeah. Yeah. Just keep going on it,
why do you think that? Do you have a theory of why you think that is?
Just that kind of constant pounding, really.
Hardcore.
Just keep going. Yeah.
Like I said, check a Strava page out and you'll see you've got like some serious consistent weekly mileage that you do.
James, I think what might be quite interesting is for you to just talk about how all this is paid for. And the struggles that you've encountered. You talked a little bit about even just getting your running blade.
Yep.
Can you just talk about, what the difference is between, because you don't get ACC funding, do you?
No.
Because it was cancer.
Yeah, it was
so
cancer,
can you just talk a little bit about that, please?
Yep.
Thank you.
So transitioning from kind of being NHS in the UK, so kind of a similar basis in some ways to a healthcare system. I found it really positive. The skill of the prosthesis maker that I've got, John in Auckland, has been really good, and him and the team there work like a really good collaborative approach. So he's always learning new things and trying new techniques. And but yeah, with it all being funded through healthcare, then there's a limit to the scope I can have with it. So there's things like I'd really like to be able to get like a kind of a beach activity leg, which is just basically it just has like a wooden foot and some holes in it, so it doesn't just bob around and float in the water, and it just makes that beach transition much easier and we're in the water. But with having the running leg and the walking leg, it's just a bit too much to try and push for that.
If you had an amputation as a result of an accident, then would you be able to get things like that?
I think I don't know, because I'm not in that situation. I think it's a bit easier to come by, but I don't know. They have been really supportive and understanding of me wanting to push for my running leg, and the blade itself, it's from Ossa, which is an Icelandic manufacturer. So I've recently been on their website and doing some research into what new legs they have, and I've seen there's a new kind of general purpose running one. So I've spoke to my limb centre the other week, which I don't think they're too elated by, about how I've seen this new one, and because I keep breaking knees, they should now look at me.
Exactly, like what's cheaper for them to keep replacing your current one, or just to get one that will last you a lot longer.
So that's the angle I'm going for. So they've said they'll get back to me and haven't done yet, but I'll keep chasing. Then go through appeal and see if I can get that.
I feel like it's pretty surprising, like funding that is available
or isn't available.
And it depends a lot, I guess, because I'm a speech therapist and I work for the hospital, and I am surprised when I am able to get funding for certain things, and I think it really just has to do with like you just keep pushing and pushing for it, and so you almost need to advocate for yourself, probably is what you found, more than anything, and then hopefully getting a good team, like John, you said, is someone that you've got like your team of people that are going to support you and try to prove that the funding is completely appropriate.
And the hard thing is it means that there's certain people like from more vulnerable backgrounds that aren't going to realise those avenues, aren't going to realise what the potential is of being an amputee and what they can do. So certainly when I see people at different ages or at the limb centre, I'll always speak to them and want them to learn a bit about what kind of things I can do. And that's when obviously big events and Paralympics is so important to see.
Do you speak at some of the limb centre groups?
I have done more in the UK when I've been over there. I haven't really as much here really. But I've been in touch with another amputee runner as well to see how they're going. And also one other thing with purely selfish motive is that because I've been running for quite a while, I've gone through many shoes, but I'm only running with my left shoe because I've got the blade in my other one, and I don't have the heart to throw away a shoe. It's a perfectly good shoe, so I've now got 2 large bags in the shed of right size 11 UK shoes. No one that needs a running shoe. I managed to find someone I think it was in Thailand through a friend of a friend who played volleyball and didn't use a prosthesis. So we managed to ship a few over them to him, but it's a very niche request.
What is your favourite running shoe?
I stick with a lot of the Mizuno Wave Riders is my main one. I find that they're kind of a good balance, and I think I've got a slightly flatter foot, so I think it helps with that support around there. I've had a few. I've got a trail one. I can't remember what that is, and had a few fast ones before, but they don't tend to last as long.
Your walking blade, though, it can fit a shoe into it, right?
Yeah. So
And
this one I can. Yeah, my
Yeah.
normal walking leg has a normal shoe in it. Yeah.
So it's more of any, like when you purchase running shoes, which running shoes are always very expensive.
Yeah.
But when you do buy them, then that's the one you're having to kind of
Yeah. So my running shoes. Yeah. I've got
Yeah.
a big store. Very nice running shoes.
All right, you heard him. If you know someone that needs right pair of shoe, then we'll have to contact James. Funny.
It's just these things that you sort of don't think about. Like, of course, that you're only needing to buy one shoe, and what you literally have to throw. You're not throwing it out, which is really good.
I would just be like, can I only pay 50%?
Yeah.
Come on, man.
Yeah,
Please.
totally.
Like,
it seems so unfair.
Yeah.
It has been on my list of things, particularly I should do to Mizuno, who I've used for quite a while, of writing to them and start seeing if I can, just start getting single shoes.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like
sponsor.
they should be supporting you. And it kind of goes back to what you had said of did you reach out to someone here in the area that is an amputee?
It's just on a Facebook forum, an amputee forum. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I think, it's such a like small community, but I can only imagine by you being able to be the voice of some of that and show people by example, like this is what you can do.
Yeah.
And like if they say, oh yeah, you can get this running blade, it's going to last you forever. And then you can tell them, actually, no, I keep breaking it. And like, it's pretty, it's inspiring to have that view around for that.
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you want to talk a little bit more about just general sort of running stuff? So, for example, what's your typical kind of fuel that you'll use in your half marathons or even in your marathon?
Half marathons, not too much, just a bit of hydration on the way. It's funny, when I started running, I was, again, like many people, it was making sure I was feeling really thirsty and going running with a bottle of water and all those things, and I realised just move away from that, get used to not as much. Yeah, with marathons, I was just using some energy gels with me, which I'd use for my long run training, and just doing that. And it's actually quite nice in the summer holidays just gone. I was able to do a few longer runs and start needing to use that a bit more, because it's been the first time for probably since that marathon I've been doing up around like 19, 20k runs. Which, it's when it starts to kick in after that 15k or so.
What is your weekly mileage?
Probably about 40 to 45k or so.
Depends on how the kids sleep.
Yes, depending on sleep, depending on those variables. Yeah. So looking to try and get a bit more consistency now that our youngest Seb is just about to be 2. So looking to do that and try and get a longer run in the weekend if I can.
Yeah. And what about like what your goals are for 2024? Are you thinking about entering any races or?
Yeah, I think I'd like to do some events. The Beach to Basin in just under a month's time. And actually I was just thinking this morning, I was out jogging, that could be quite a nice little mini target to have of trying to improve my short run speed. It's just 10k is the most painful distance. So
I know, it hurts. Yeah. What are some, so you talked about doing fartlek at the start of the episode. Do you do what kind of speed work do you do?
I just, that and some interval ones are often, I quite like just, because it's more just grabbing that time in the morning, but depending on what it is, chucking in some strides at the end as well of a run is just a really nice way.
So smart.
Yeah, it's a really nice way just to squeeze it in without having to be too tactical on it.
I feel like you would be a really good person to get advice from for people that are like time poor with small children. Like everything you're talking about is like really smart when you've only got like an hour in the morning, or you're just trying to cram something in, like just, doing a few strides at the end of your run. Adding in some faster stuff in the middle of, even if you're only doing 7 kilometers, putting a couple of fast Ks in there, which is exactly what you're talking about. Yeah. So
now if I want to get in the right time for that, it's actually quite easy. If I get out in the morning, I can just do a 25-minute session and just do like a sprint focus to it, which will really help that 10k training. Yeah. It's not much time to dedicate. It's just it's a hot, muggy morning, the motivation to actually push, because otherwise you're just jogging for 2Ks.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Have you had any serious injuries?
Apart from the marathon one,
the pulverizing stump,
which is pretty serious.
Yeah, I've had quite a few. I always have to have that balance with my stumps. So I've had many. Sometimes I can get small infections, and and it's that balance of how much do I just ignore it and keep running with it? Because if I stopped every time my stump was a little bit sore or a little bit achy or a little bit rubbing, I'd be hardly running at all. So it's how much I just push through. But then sometimes I do and think, yes, that was not a great idea. And it can, because of the pressure when I'm running on it, if there's a small infection, it can then, as it's being forced back in deeper, then swell up and get a bit nasty. So, quite a few times having 3 days, 5 days, and sometimes up to 1 or 2 weeks off from it. Aside from that, I've been touched with not too bad. Just a few tendons and things, just niggles.
You got
nothing major.
Shin splints in the beginning, is that what you said?
Yeah, shin splints at the beginning, but now I've done I keep quite a regular load, and obviously just watch any increases and decreases. I think it's just as you get more experience, it's like learning to listen to your body and
it also sounds like you have an incredibly high pain threshold though too, James.
Mm-hmm.
Like you have to be pretty resilient to be like what you've been through, and like I think you are totally understating. Like you're incredible. Like you must be incredibly resilient and mentally strong.
It's just I don't know. You can't change the hand that you dealt really. So it's just about then making the most of the opportunities with it. And when I'm out running and things like that, and inevitably if doing parkrun, you're not competitive, but the moment you're out there, you are using that as competition and using it as to get in front. And it's I'm comparing myself against those people. I don't see the difference there. It's hard to know really what the difference is with efficiency, but it's kind of somewhere between that 20 to 30% less efficient with artificial leg, even with a blade.
Wow. So when you talk about the fact that you did 1 hour 38 half and then your 3 hour 44?
3:44.
To me, that's like equivalent to like what, 3:20? Probably, or I don't know.
That's insane on your first one.
And your half marathon time. I mean, that is really speedy. Speaking of pain, when you were 11, you probably experienced phantom pain. Is that something that still happens now?
No, and I was really fortunate that I fundamentally didn't really have anything major at all, but I have met other amputees that have had like a stabbing sensation, agonizing feeling that in some cases may go on for years, and in a foot they no longer have. And very little that could be done apart from to kind of sedate and medicate to try and treat that. Mine was, it's so bizarre. I had it felt like for about 2 weeks afterwards, straight after the amputation, that my toes in my right foot, which no longer was there, were being squeezed together, and it felt like my little toe was overlapping the next toe in.
Oh, wow.
And not just like a little bit, it was a convincing feeling like my toes were squished together. Not painful, but I could just feel the little toe resting on the next one inside.
Are there any like mental exercises that you're given to do to deal with that, or what? And do they prepare you for that? And what do they say? It was we were informed of it. I don't know if there might be more education on it now, because this is back in '94. But so I knew kind of what it was then, and then it just kind of drifted away, and it was only after 2 weeks, and sometimes a little bit of tingling feeling, but it's hard to know whether that tingling is at where the nerve endings had recently been severed, or was it in that kind of area below it. But so nothing at all in terms of pain, but just a bizarre feeling of cramped toes in a foot that was amputated.
I'm no expert, but in the States I did work with a lot of amputees that were more diabetic related. And we would give out a booklet about phantom pain, and so this was like 2018 and on, and there is a lot of research about it, and a lot of interest. Like there is medication options of like a Neuron, which is like kind of a nerve pain management medication, but then also interestingly, a lot of it is like either postural changes or distractive behavior, like kind of distracting it, or even meditation was like a really big one, and thinking about breathing. But that was all that. And for you, obviously now it doesn't affect you anymore.
No.
So it's not like you would need to think about that. Huh. And that when you had that feeling of the small pinky toe kind of moving over that lasted for 2 weeks, but then it eventually went away.
Yeah, so it was as a constant there, but it wasn't uncomfortable, and then it just faded after 2 weeks, and then nothing again since then. Yeah, it's quite wonderful how the human mind works.
Yeah,
it is.
Has to adapt to that situation.
Yeah, our bodies are so adaptable.
Yeah, and obviously, nerves misfiring. It's your brain just has to interpret something.
Mm-hmm.
I was just lucky; it was a very minor thing that mine interpreted.
Yeah.
Okay, James. Just a couple more questions.
Yep.
I feel like I could talk to you for ages, so you'll have to come for a run with us.
Yeah,
we can grill you. We're making it sound so appealing. I suppose, what sort of advice would you give to someone that is struggling with something physically that maybe want to run but just need to overcome that barrier of taking the first step into it?
I mean, it's a lot of people for a variety of reasons would find it difficult. I don't know about you guys, but I love it if I'm out running and I see someone who might not be their first few times doing it, and it might be difficult for them. Like, those are the people I'm doffing my cap to the most, really.
Totally.
That are just doing it, getting out there, because it is hard, and your body, like if any of us have had time away from it, our bodies are incredible at adapting to that increased load, but they're also incredible at going backwards as well when you stop running. Yeah, just being able to try and overcome those challenges, really. Just being able to, like, what those limitations are. It's not as a fix, really. I define myself as, I am an amputee, I am disabled, but it's not going to impact on how I want to lead my life, and I'm not prepared to kind of sit back and let it dictate to me the level of activity. Laterally, a few times it does kind of tap me on the shoulder and say, no, that's enough. And that's when I get the issues. But those are all able to be overcome. Of course, other people with other issues, other injuries or other disabilities may not be able to do that kind of thing, but there is an activity for everyone out there. And for me, it's just the meditative space it gives me. It's like, it's my meditation. It's my kind of time to myself and my thoughts, even if it is trudging out the door at 5 a.m. And I've just, found that kind of invaluable, really, over the last 5 years or so.
Yeah, definitely. Would you say that, it's about just starting small? Is that what you did?
Yeah.
So if you think back to, say, your first run where you said, I'm going to go out for a run, what did that look like for you?
Yeah. So the first few, just be able to just do anything, like kind of run, walk, and there's like great programs like those kind of like Couch to 5K ones as well, which are really great for people to just kind of make those small little changes and squeeze it in. I mean, I remember when I was starting off, thinking that this is fun to do. Maybe I might be able to one day run 5 kilometers and be able to eventually do that. And then I remember probably it was a good few months afterwards. So it wasn't like I suddenly got into running long distances. I remember, like, at one point I was out running and I managed to get to like 8 kilometers, and I was, oh my God, I can't believe it. I thought, because at that point I knew I could do activities, but I didn't think I'd be able to run that far. And then, like, a few weeks later, being overjoyed that I could get to 10 kilometers. I never thought I'd be able to run 10 kilometers. I'd been told before that I wouldn't be able to do things like a marathon. It would be just too much impact and too much pressure on the leg. So even like from a teenage point, and at that point that might have been true of the prosthesis available at that point. But I would always think I'd like to do something, I'd like to do a run, but I'd never be able to do a marathon. So just kind of those small ones. And I can remember the exact run of doing that first 10K and seeing on my watch that I'd run 10K without stopping. Felt incredible.
And I think it's a really inspirational story that you're capable of things that you don't even know are possible for you. And you are a testament to that.
Do you look at other people's stories then too? I cannot remember her name. I want to say it's Adrian, but she was there when the Boston Marathon bombing happened. And had an amputee, and then Shalane Flanagan paced her for her marathon. And again, it's kind of that proof of like, oh, you you can't run a marathon, but then like here we are proving to people that yes, there's equipment out there, and they're more than capable of being able to do it safely too. I'm not saying for you to run a marathon again, but
Tell Steph that,
yeah. I mean, do you look to those stories, or like, what do you think about that?
They're incredibly important. I looked at them a bit. I think it's when we still need to see far more publicity around it, and I think with Paralympics now it gets a larger focus. I still think it's a little bit of a, oh, look at them, well done them, they're trying, and poor them, the disabled people, but they're doing their best. Like, whereas actually they are incredible athletes, and you watch some of the things like the wheelchair basketball. It's just brutal. It's just like charging into each other and. Yeah.
And Sophie Pascoe, like I've always found her so inspirational. She's a New Zealand swimmer, Mel, that's achieved incredible things on the world stage at the Paralympics. She's been fantastic to kind of normalise all of that. Like she's seen number one as an incredible athlete, not as someone with a disability who's trying hard. Yeah,
so,
but if you actually look at their times as well, Sophie Pascoe, I used to be a swimmer. She swims way faster than I could ever swim, So
exactly.
like if you actually watch them, you're actually achieving just as well as if not better, and better in a lot of instances too.
Yeah.
It's just insane to me.
It is incredible. And with an Olympic year coming up as well, hopefully there'll be more and more coverage of it, because it's great. And I'll speak to them as I'm a high school teacher, so I will kind of drop that in as little segues into lessons or other activities, and just showing just some of the incredible athletes. So I'm showing some of the swimmers, ones without any arms at all, and they're just going for it. And at the finish line, it's just head down and smashing the head straight into the wall, because the first one touches it wins. So.
Incredible.
Yeah. So
what are some ways that to support Paralympics and what are some ways to be able to do that?
I think just having the interest in it and those sports really, and so having watching those ones and being able to follow what's going on, and equally if there are other local events nearby, be able to support those ones too. I know there's another person who runs a bit who's trying to set up something in that space at the moment, down Central North Island, so trying to connect with that, which I need to do a bit more of myself.
Are there local runs like in Northland, or where are those local races happening?
I know someone on Facebook, he's just setting one up down in I think Central North Island somewhere. He's just trying to set something up, and there is quite a few. There's charities and things that set up things for young amputees. Like I remember doing one when I was about 13, and it was incredible to kind of go on an event where it's just lots of young amputees my age as well, and you get to meet others. And one of them there she was only 16, but she'd won a Paralympic gold as well. So be able to meet kind of sports people as well. That was huge, really, because you could kind of see that what the opportunities were and what their experiences were. So so those charities are really useful. Yep.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Okay.
Is there anything that you would share with others who do not have experience with amputees that maybe is unexpected, or people may not consider, specifically since this is a running podcast related to running? You have already shared, I think, quite a bit about even again, I wouldn't have known how often to change the sleeve, or I didn't know that you only had one running blade. I didn't know there was only one. Yeah. In my head, I was like, he probably has a whole bin of them, a whole So if you have anything like that,
well, if people deal with them, I think it's just kind of having an interest, a bit for anyone in any walk of life. Don't be afraid to ask the questions about it. That's I think that's the best one, really. I mean. Yeah, I still get it now. You've got, just people. I'm just used to it because it's what I've known for such a long time. But people just staring and looking, but asking a question. Although I do sometimes have the social awkwardness, and I'm quite British, so I don't like being awkward. But if I walk past someone who's an amputee in the street, I'm like, do I say hi? We haven't got an official handshake, but should we have one? Should we talk?
A head nod?
It's a head nod. People, chest bump.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. It's been really insightful to hear all about your story. And I think when people see the one-legged English guy out running, that maybe you'll be getting a lot more people to talk to you. And
please come speak to me.
Yeah,
Definitely.
very
Thanks,
approachable. So I really appreciate you for taking your time today.
No, not at all.
and
Thanks for inviting me along.
answering all of our questions because we had a lot of questions. Yeah. Do you want to close
Yeah,
out?
really inspirational story, James.
Thanks,
I
Hannah.
think a lot of people are going to be really keen to hear it and inspired by you. Yeah, so thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, just to close out, as always, a big thank you to our show sponsor, Treat Trail and Fish. Buy all your running shoes and gear there, please. And seriously, check out the Treat Trail and Fish 50k ultra marathon that is happening in May in Pai here. It's going to be freaking amazing. If you're new to the Run Adjacent podcast, please make sure you follow or subscribe on Spotify, Apple, or whatever platform you're listening to your pods on. You can find Run Adjacent on Instagram and Facebook at Run Adjacent. But until next time, happy running!